Hello, I'm Adam, your booster gold standard of BlampCo Incorporated, making it all about the Benjamins since 2015, and this is how Adam would book, where I craft alternate wrestling storylines and challenge promotions to do them better, 'cause I'm a smartass. This time around, I've been commissioned by my mama's favourite patron, DJ2K1357, to rebook WWE's handling of Shelton Benjamin, one of the best wrestlers in the world to have never been part of a major storyline. Seriously, Shelton Benjamin is a wrestler for whom you can remember countless moments, running up that ladder one time, jumping off that ladder one time, both those spots made even more impressive by the fact that Shelton apparently suffers from vertigo, Jesus X Christ, pinning Triple H that one time, getting eliminated at under a minute at the 2008 Rumble, springboarding into that goddamn super kick and sharing the ring with Brock Lesnar at the 2020 Rumble. But in terms of actual storylines, as a singles wrestler, if you ask someone to name just one narrative thing they remembered about Shelton Benjamin, it would probably be his mother. Shelton Benjamin started amateur wrestling at a young age, becoming a South Carolina state champion before college. At the University of Minnesota, he became an All-American twice. Now, we hear that term a lot as Brits, and I've never really known what it meant. I assumed it was just like a Boy Scout badge, meaning you'd clocked in enough hours at a typically American thing like firing a gun in the air to express contentment or getting in my fucking way on the underground. But no, it means that Shelton Benjamin was recognized by an official sporting body as one of like the 10 best wrestlers in the country. Fucking twice! Minnesota is also the place where Shelton met, was a roommate of, helped coach, and became lifelong friends with the man who put the Minnesota into giant fucking shaved bear spotted in Minnesota, Brock Lesnar. And because I don't really want to talk about Brock Lesnar a whole bunch right now, I'm going to spend the rest of this video replacing his name with the words, the big stupid ham. In WWE's developmental territory, OVW, Shelton Benjamin and the Big Stupid Ham teamed up as the Minnesota Stretching Crew during the class of 2002, which also featured Cena, Orton, and Batista. And how many hundreds of millions of dollars did these four dudes make WWE over the course of 20 years? Bloody hell. The Big Stupid Ham would be the first of the OVW four to receive a push, but eventually all four would main event their own WrestleManias. Shelton Benjamin would not. At the end of 2002, Benjamin would debut on SmackDown alongside another amateur wrestler, Charlie Haas, as part of Team Angle, a pair of catch-as-catch-can henchmen during Kurt Angle's feud with the Big Stupid Ham leading into WrestleMania 19. Eventually, they'd be fired by Kurt in mid-2003 and were rebranded as the humbly named World's Greatest Tag Team. I like that. What do you guys want to call yourself? The Best Ones. Are you sure? Yeah. 'Cause we are the best ones. In 2004, Benjamin joined Raw and began a singles run, beating Triple H in a shock upset win, feuding with Evolution for a few months before the push was derailed after accidentally breaking his hand on Sunday Night Heat. On his return later that year, he won the Intercontinental Championship from Chris Jericho on Taboo Tuesday, being fan-voted into the match, an indication that he was still popular with the audience, actually holding the title for the better part of a year, over 200 days before losing it to Carlito on Mr. Caribbean Cool's first night on the Raw brand. That loss did see the end of Shelton's peak in WWE. There followed a kayfabe losing streak, and in his professional despair, Shelton turned to the one woman he could truly depend on, the actress that WWE hired to play his mother. Thereby assuring that no one would ever pay to see him main event a pay-per-view, Shelton Benjamin began bringing his mother to the ring, where she would fake heart complications to help him win matches. And again, that's really cool. Imagine if I started bringing my mother along during my fantasy bookings to get everyone to tell me I'm doing a good job. No need to imagine. She's here tonight. Hello, Mum.
Hello, son.
Are you proud of me now?
I'm as proud of you as I've ever been.
That didn't answer my question.
No, it didn't, did it?
My therapist really needs to get back from his holiday. See you at Christmas! Anyway, Anyway, Shelton's mum was only on TV for 2 months, but she did help him win the Intercontinental title again, before disappearing forever to have kayfabe heart surgery before presumably dying on the way back to her home planet. Benjamin and Haas reformed the world's greatest tag team for a year, not winning the titles during this time, which does sort of disprove their fucking name, before Shelton would join ECW and attempt to reinvent himself by dyeing his hair blonde, and who would do that? The Gold Standard never won the ECW championship during his time on the C brand, which is like fucking, why not? Johnny Nitro and Chavo Guerrero were ECW champions. Matt Hardy was ECW champion. Shelton can't get a little fucking sniffer one? Shelton left WWE in 2010 and spent the next 5 years doing the good work that you would expect, wrestling in Ring of Honor with Charlie Haas again, wrestling in New Japan as Shelton X Benjamin, where he joined Suzuki Gun, wrestled Nakamura, and appeared in multiple G1 climaxes and on the cards of Wrestle Kingdom 7 through 9. That's how you fucking do it. He returned to WWE in 2017, briefly teaming with the Kurt Angle themed wrestler Chad Gable in the already Kurt Angle themed American Alpha, brought in to replace Jason Jordan in WWE's attempt to replace one black amateur wrestler with another, like Indiana Jones and the Idol at the beginning of Raiders. Benjamin would find more success in the Hurt Business, winning the WWE tag titles one last time during the pandemic. Then the Hurt Business disbanded, reformed, disbanded again, and finally became the Hurt Syndicate over in AEW, with both men incomprehensibly having the combined age of 99. How is this man 50 years old? Black don't crack and Shelt don't melt. Over 20 years and counting in the business, including a run where he'd regularly be put over by JR as the best pure athlete in WWE, yet never quite hitting the big time he was capable of. Well, Shelton, I can do it better. Before we get properly into the booking, why not join our Patreon, patreon.com/BlampCo, where this video was originally commissioned. And you can commission your own booking video over there if you want to. We have absolutely loads of exclusive booking videos on the Patreon. The most recent one being how Adam would book the Aces and Eights. I had to watch a lot of TNA for that. Please give me some money to make it better. And it's not just booking videos, we have exclusive lists over there, including dropping today a top 10 Shawn Michaels super kicks of all time, of which I will be using science to work out which is the best switch in music ever. Head on over to our Patreon, patreon.com/BlampCo, and check it out. Now on with the video. So this booking actually takes place over 4 years, so forgive me if some of it is a little brisk. Ain't no stopping me. No. We begin in 2002 and put a few things right which have always bothered me. First of all, the Big Stupid Ham and Paul Heyman don't split up at the Survivor Series 2002, with the WWE randomly chucking the WWE title around porn stash and trousers. Big Show, none of this. The truth is, Paul and the Big Stupid Ham were basically tweeners at this point, and I think you can keep them that way. Keep them as a partnership going into WrestleMania 19. Instead, at Survivor Series 2002, the Big Stupid Ham goes up against Kurt Angle, and instead, it's the debut and interference of Team Angle that allows Kurt to beat the Big Stupid Ham for the WWE Championship, turning Kurt into a super heel, cements the Big Stupid Ham as more of a face, and also makes the debuting Shelton and Charlie Haas into much bigger difference makers and more important characters right from their first day in the company. What also happens, now that we've got a few more months to tell this Team Angle story, is that the audience is told the story of the Big Stupid Ham and Shelton Benjamin, how they met at university, how they came up together in OVW, how they even had dark matches together on Raw. Heyman is a master storyteller. He can tell the story of how Shelton is betraying all of this history by taking Kurt Angle's side. So Benjamin's really caught in the middle, one of his oldest friends, or the guy who is basically his Olympic ideal in the place where he wants to make his living. Have Benjamin falter slightly, torn between these two masters. Angle wants him to take a kendo stick to Paul Heyman, who's pleading and crying and begging all the things that Paul Heyman has a PhD in, and Shelton Shelton doesn't want to. So Angle slaps him, reminds him, whose logo do you wear, Shelton? Who took you under their wing? He slaps him, he locks him in the ankle lock. This leads to the main event of WrestleMania 19, where Team Angle look like they're going to interfere in the match for Kurt Angle, but actually Shelton runs Charlie Haas off, makes it an even playing field, allows the big stupid ham to get his WWE Championship back, and the two men with Paul Heyman reunite on Raw. And the story for the next few months is that they put back together the Minnesota Stretching Crew, have a short run as WWE Tag Team Champs before they lose the belts, and the big stupid ham and Heyman turn on Shelton, betray him, tell him, we used you, we never needed you. This serves the purpose of giving Shelton a big WWE Championship match at Vengeance, which yes, he should lose, but it does also mean that he's already been thought of in terms of world title matches, and we've established a few things that we're going to use later. Kurt Angle returns before SummerSlam, has a big number one contenders match with Shelton, who pushes Angle to his limit, but ultimately Kurt Angle wins to set up the big SummerSlam rematch with alignments reversed, but Kurt makes sure to raise Shelton's hand after that match, treat him as an equal, meaning that Shelton stays an important player on SmackDown. He wrestles for the US title as part of Team Angle versus Team Ham at Survivor Series. It's not his time yet. There's still something missing in his presentation, but people have at least been prepped enough that Shelton Benjamin is good enough to compete at this level. When Shelton moves over to Raw in 2004, he then beats Randy Orton for the Intercontinental title at Bad Blood, and he holds it for the rest of the year, is the Workhorse Champion with the Workhorse Championship. He can rename it the Sheltontinental Championship. And I'm only 80% joking. At this point, his gimmick is simple. He is the best pure athlete in WWE, and if you take the Sheltontinental Challenge, then he's got good news and bad news for you. The good news, you're about to have the best match of the night. The bad news, ain't no stopping me, no. However, the beginning of 2005 is really bad for Shelton Benjamin. He loses the first ever Money in the Bank match despite doing, that spot. Hell, Shelton Benjamin's Money in the Bank ladder spots are so good that WWE games reprogram what you could do with ladders just so you could do them too at home. In SmackDown vs. Raw 2007 and from onwards, you could replicate the spot. You lean a ladder and then you do. And then right up until 2K25, you can still do the Shelton runs up ladders leaning on the ropes bit like he did at WrestleMania 22. He's the fucking best. Everyone wants to be Shelton Benjamin. So he loses the Money in the Bank match in 2005. And shortly thereafter, he loses his Intercontinental Championship. By the summer of 2005, Shelton Benjamin is in that position that he too often found himself in real life. A crazy, talented athlete without a story. And perhaps without, if we're honest, the necessary promo skills to hang out there by himself. That is when he's approached shortly before SummerSlam 2005 by Paul Heyman, the ultimate mouthpiece. Now, at this point, we've already set up the relationship between the Minnesota Stretching Crew, the history going back to OVW, and the build up to WrestleMania 19. We had the shared connections between Shelton and the big stupid ham, who's now quacked the company. And best of all, we've got the total distrust from Paul Heyman's betrayal of Shelton lingering in Benjamin's mind. Shelton initially says, "No, Paul Heyman, fuck off," because of course, trusting Paul Heyman is like trusting baby-eating Brian as your affordable daycare provider. Of course he's affordable. He's going to eat your baby. But as anyone who thinks about it for even a second can figure out, Paul Heyman is perfect for Shelton in terms of the business. Paul has a history of managing freak talented athletes who require a bit of help in the promo department. His last major client main evented Wrestle Fucking Mania, so he's got that cachet and legitimacy. And at this point, One Night Stand 2005 has just happened, a gigantic feather in his cap, and he's ready to make a big comeback as a manager. But to do that, he needs a client. He needs the next big thing. We build this story for weeks, turn it into months as Paul Heyman repeatedly tries to beg Shelton to accept his help. Late in 2005, there's a special Las Vegas episode on Raw, a micro tournament that would see the winner get a whopping $100,000 payday. WWE would do shit like this all the time. Hardys versus Edge and Christian, wrestling for a big bag of money in the Terry Invitational tournament, which only existed because it's spelled tit, which very much pleased this New York sophisticate. And even WrestleMania 1 had the $15,000 body slam challenge. Throughout the 4-man tournament, Heyman helped Shelton win his matches, win the $100,000, and with this huge career-altering win, Shelton reluctantly accepts Paul Heyman's help. Springboarding off this big payday win, we use the whole new wealth thing to change Shelton's gimmick. Paul Heyman takes charge of all the money, but uses it to turn his client into the ultimate success symbol in WWE. Flashcards, tailored suits, and the brand new catchphrase, "It's all about the Benjamins." It's the rags to riches story so often told, as a greedy agent gets their claws into an incredible, if naive, talent, introduces them to the high life, and their soul becomes slowly corrupted by it. Shelton starts to believe his own hype, becomes a conceited, cocky heel with the perfect mouthpiece in the form of Heyman, all about the accumulation of wealth, power, status, and what fits more perfectly with that idea than WWE's hottest new gimmick match, a match that Shelton Benjamin made history in the year before, Money in the Bank. At WrestleMania 22, instead of RVD, Shelton Benjamin, with the help of Paul E, becomes Mr. Money in the Bank, as 2006 promises to be all about the Benjamins. And I know that some of you are seeing the strings I've unraveled here and are thinking, but Adam, doesn't this mean that if RVD never wins the briefcase, that we never get ECW back as a third brand? And to that I say, yes! And you're fucking welcome. Did you ever fucking watch it? Instead of WWE chewing up and spitting out Paul Heyman's baby, Vince is the only person worse than big baby eating Brian to give custody of something you hold precious. Instead, Paul continues his partnership with Shelton Benjamin, and One Night Stand 2005 ends up being, unbelievably, a one-night stand. Did you know, by the way, that at One Night Stand 2005, JBL beat up the Blue Weenie for real? He said it! Also, just as a random aside, Shelton Benjamin's a teetotaler. And maybe WWE wishes it had given Money in the Bank to a teetotaler in 2006. But maybe that's just hindsight being 420. So as 2006 progresses past WrestleMania, John Cena is in a months-long feud with Edge at the top of the Raw card. Edge cashed in on him at New Year's Revolution 2006 after holding the briefcase for the better part of a year, immediately lost the title at the Royal Rumble, which was certainly a fucking choice. But the two guys would end up having a wonderful on-off feud throughout the year. The two men have a match at Vengeance 2006 in which Cena beats Edge to retain his title before their feud escalates to a vicious and violent last man standing match in the main event of SummerSlam, which Edge finally manages to win shortly before Paul Heyman walks out to announce, "Nobody's going anywhere. This night is not over. First of all, I'd like to congratulate Edge for winning the WWE Championship. Second, this individual is cashing in his Money in the Bank privilege that he earned at WrestleMania. A WWE Championship match will take place right here, right now. Edge defends against Shelton Benjamin. Ain't no stopping me. No. Out comes Shelton Benjamin, briefcase in hand. He cashes it in, grabs Edge up for the T-bone suplex, pins him to win the WWE Championship. This is a huge moment for a number of reasons, but I really like it in terms of just like super contrived. Oh, look, it's very similar because, well, first of all, it took way quicker to do this cash in than the last one, and the previous cash in was Edge cashing in on Cena. So it's a huge dagger in the heart of the rated R superstar to have such poignant comeuppance. And in the spirit of these moments mirroring each other, on the next Raw, Shelton and Paul Heyman have a live sex celebration. I mean it. Animate that now. I mean it. No, I'm just kidding. At Unforgiven 2006 run Shelton versus Cena versus Edge in a triple threat TLC match, because Shelton and Edge have both won huge ladder matches in their careers by this point now, and Cena and Edge's hatred for each other can allow Shelton to retain. And at this point, just as a little side point, both brands in WWE would have a black world champion. Shelton Benjamin as WWE champion and King Booker as world heavyweight champion. 2006 ended up being one of WWE's more embarrassing years, but this might be a reasonably nice thing. Needless to say, Shelton shouldn't hold the WWE Championship forever, but with Paul Heyman at his side, you can have feuds with RVD, complicated by the personal connection that Paul Heyman has with Rob Van Dam. Then Shawn Michaels, with Shelton retaining a few times over the Heartbreak Kid before Cena can eventually win it back at something like, I don't know, New Year's Revolution 2007. But at least this way, whenever Shelton Benjamin does hang up his wrestling singlet, and it doesn't actually look to be any time in the near future, you can always look back at those 6 months where his booking equaled his talent, and he took his place ever so briefly at the top of the mountain, mostly by running up it on the side of a ladder. That is how I think WWE should have booked Shelton Benjamin. What do you think? Let me know in the comments, and many thanks again to patron DJ2K1357 for commissioning this at patreon.com/Adam Blampier. Until the next time, get back to work.